Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Mike Madigan runs the Democratic House floor for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, how it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when you're moving out.
Dan and Amy, that theme music means it's time for a weekly conversation with Ted Dabrowski, president of Wirepoints, wirepoints.org. But before we get to Ted, talking about the criminal justice system in the context of the massacre at the Christmas parade in Waukesha, where the dude who's been charged with 5 counts of premeditated murder had been bonded out for $1,000, habitual criminal, repeat offender, bonded out for $1,000 after attempting to run over the mother of one of his children with his car.
Yeah, and that happened November 2nd, I believe.
And he was bonded $1,000 bond on Friday, the Friday before the Sunday massacre.
And it is a massacre, by the way.
Chris Holm, the DA in Milwaukee County, the bond was unusually low.
Yeah, now they're looking into it, Dan.
The prosecutorial decisions in the Rittenhouse case, Chesa Bowden in San Francisco all of a sudden realizing that these mobs attacking high-profile retail stores, that's a problem, as he's given over the streets of San Francisco to the mob, the same way that Lightfoot and Fox have given over the streets to the mob, to the predators in Chicago and Cook County. And this against the backdrop of election results 3 weeks ago that suggest defund the police, not real popular even in blue states like Minnesota, blue cities like Minneapolis. You think this in any way chastens the defund the police and defund the prisons left? If you think that, you'd be wrong. Let me present some evidence. Recent. MFer Spice, you know her as Rashida Tlaib of the Socialist Spice Girls Caucus in the House Democrat Socialist Caucus. She sat down for an interview with Jonathan Swan from Axios to talk about her support for the Breathe Act. Breathe Act, of course, in the wake of the George Floyd killing. The Breathe Act would close all federal prisons over the course of the 10 years following its enactment. Close all federal prisons.
What?
We've talked about it before. It's not moving. It's not going to move. But that's what they believe. And so one wonders, well, why? Here's Tlaib.
Any potential downsides of releasing into society every single person who's currently in a federal prison?
Yeah, I think that everyone's like, oh my God, we're going to just release everybody. That's not what
that says.
But did you see how many people are mentally ill that are in prison right now?
No, I know, but the act that you endorsed actually says release everyone
but in 10 years. But think about it, who are releasing?
But there are like human traffickers,
I know,
child sex. So, but you're saying, do you mean that you don't actually support that? Because you endorsed the bill.
No, I endorsed the Breathe Act and looking at the policies and how we incarcerate. Absolutely.
But it says in there.
But you cannot just blankly say, oh, look, she wants. That's not what I'm.
But that's like in plain text.
But what I'm saying is, look at who's in prison now. No, look at the folks that are mentally ill, that have substance abuse problems.
But I'm not disagreeing with you that there are people who
but
should
then
be
why
in
aren't you
prison.
asking me about them? You're asking me about the human traffickers and others that should
I'm trying to understand.
Be able to be
what I'm trying to understand is
accountable.
your proposal is so sweeping. It does release everyone. And what I'm trying to say to you is
within 10 years, and obviously there's a process of looking at how can we get away from mass incarceration and move towards care.
What do you think about that idea? Release everybody in federal prison over the next 10 years and trust Rashida Tlaib and her Socialist Spice Girl gal pals to determine, who maybe should be released outright and who maybe should be confined to some other facility. But again, the indictment is mass incarceration. The indictment is that people in prison are mentally ill, and so they need treatment post or pre. They need care pre so they don't end up in prison. The reason they're in prison is because we didn't provide the care in the first place. And now that they're there, we need to provide the care subsequently. I mean, there are people, like Jeff Fort and mass murderers in federal prisons, right? Federal prison is where you go to do real time.
Right. Violent drug offenders.
But that's the perspective. That's legislation that animates the Democrat Socialists, including the Democrat Socialists in the Illinois delegation.
So they want to free serial killers, too, because a lot of them are there.
She certainly wasn't making the distinctions that Jonathan Swan, the reporter for Axios, was trying to get her to make, which is instructive. And the attitude of that congressperson from Michigan and the entire power structure in Illinois and Chicago gives you this story from the Tribune, no less. Shocking that they've actually picked up on this. It only took them a decade. As the black population continues to drop in Chicago and Illinois, few regret their move, I should say, or their new mood. 5 years after leaving South Shore, Jason and Jennifer Parks are convinced the decision to move their family to Northwest Indiana was the right one. Northwest Indiana, isn't that white racists?
Right.
As Chicago continues to struggle to contain violence, the Parkses said they appreciate the town of St. John's at a slower pace.
Oh, it's
The
beautiful.
4-bedroom home they built on a wide lot in Lake County, Indiana, provides space, security, and the community kinship they were searching for. Community kinship? There's white people in St. John. The family is among thousands of Black Cook County residents who left the city for other states during the past decade. The reverse migration out of Chicago has lowered the city's black population by 10% in the last decade. Chicago's black population, now under 800,000, lowest total since the mid-1950s. Now, the Parkses appreciate the active parents at the local schools where their 15-year-old twin daughters are thriving and have part-time jobs after school. But wait a second, they're black and St. John is mostly white.
How is that possible, Dan? No.
Oh, so there it is. All of the black race hustlers in office and, the shakedown artists like the Jackson family in Chicago. They've served black families in Chicago, in Cook County, and Illinois so well. Don't ever change. It's just the smart ones who can leave. For more on all of this, now we bring in our friend Ted Dabrowski, wirepoints.com. Ted, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan. Good morning, Amy. Tough times.
How about that? Black families in traditionally black neighborhoods where the black middle class once upon a time thrived in Chicago, they're leaving for lily white Northwest Indiana. What is going on, Ted? The Chicago Tribune wants to understand.
They're surprised, right? Well, this is something we've been harping on at Wirepoints, and it's one of the first things I hit on when I came back to Illinois back in 2007, is that I was doing the reverse of what people were doing. One of the first things I did when I got back to Illinois was a review of all the IRS data that said where people were moving to and where they're moving from. And Illinois was then already one of the biggest losers. And it's not surprising, especially, and it used to be that we thought, well, only the rich people can leave. The poor people can't, the ones that are kind of stuck, especially those in the South Side. Well, the recent data has shown that a lot of them are leaving. Just, anybody who is, in the South Side or in Chicago, who's black, middle class, lower income, they can move. And we've met some of them. I interviewed one in Atlanta who did my haircut and said she got out of Illinois because it just wasn't working for her. She was an African-American entrepreneur. To me, it's not surprising because if you look at the crime, if you look at the schools, if you look at the taxes, if you look at the corruption, just add it up, and you're giving people a reason to leave. And I always say that people aren't stupid. They can be bamboozled for a long time by the press and by the politicians, but they're not stupid. They figure it out after a while.
I was driving through Dalton and Harvey, that whole area, the Southland, last weekend for some reason. Oh, anyway, and that's not sustainable. I mean, there's houses that are abandoned, and their police departments look like there's weeds growing, that they haven't mowed the lawn, they haven't done anything. And I just don't know how long. I mean, what's going to happen if their police departments fold? Will Cook
Amy, I
County
think
sheriffs take over?
It's one of the biggest, I think,
Nobody
secrets
knows.
in the country is how messed up that area has become. And I've gone down there several times and spent some time down in Harvey. And I've been through Detroit right after the bankruptcy and drove around. And there are areas in Harvey that look like that, where you just got raised lots, you got burned out houses side by side, and nobody cares. And this is why people like the one that Dan's talking about move to Indiana, where they can actually have things like school choice, bigger homes, bigger yards, lower property taxes, and not be treated like you're some, I don't know, not treated badly like a lot of the politicians treat Illinoisans and Chicagoans.
Right, and it's a reminder that we fall into the rhetoric of the identitarian left, talking about people based on their race as if they're monolithic, rather than the Parkses the Parks family. They're an individual family from the South Shore that now living in St. John. They made a decision about their family, not about the great race war that Nicole Hannah-Jones and the 1619 hustlers want us to wage. The problem, it seems, is, and they recognize it, the Parks family clearly does, is that this doesn't make sense for us to be here. And what they see around them is probably the same thing I see around, that you see around, is a bunch of people that are essentially wards of the state, disproportionately minorities, just the facts in Chicago. And there's just no change on the horizon. So with no prospect for a better future, we better go find a better future elsewhere.
Well, that's precisely what we've written about so much at Wirepoints, and we actually wrote about that yesterday with now related but not the same topic is, Kiplinger came out, the finance company, the personal finance company, and said that, watch out, look at your taxes before you move somewhere, figure out, where you're going to spend thousands more. And Illinois was the least tax-friendly state in the country for middle-class families. It doesn't matter if you're black or white, right? It's the worst state in the country for that. So it's another reason why people leave. And so, you just keep adding all that stuff up. But Dan, I want to just tie back to your comments and some of the stories you were telling earlier today is that, what you're hearing from Lightfoot, from Pritzker, from others are just, these untruths that they keep spewing, and they'll continue to push people out because, as they get crazier and crazier, and they're, I hate to say people lie all the time, but that's what they start to sound like. They're just lies. And it's going to keep chasing people out because they're not going to believe anything that's said by these people. And I think the worst one is the one where, Lightfoot is talking about things devolving into chaos when she was the one that watched Chicago burn during the riots. She has no standing to say what she's saying. And so, it doesn't matter whether you're black or white or Hispanic. You're hearing these things, and they're getting their comments are getting crazier. What the Spice Girls saying there is crazy. These are all crazy statements, and at some point, just let them spew their untruths because it's going to wake up people to the realization that they're just extreme, and eventually that'll be good news.
The divide in the city and the state will be the productive and the law-abiding versus the political and the lawless. That seems to be the divide. It has nothing to do with race. It has to do with behavior and attitude.
Yeah. So I, again, we're back to the pendulum swinging thing. It's swinging like crazy right now, swinging very far, but it's swinging almost like it's going to go upside down.
Something else too. I saw this story about District 65, which is Evanston-Skokie, which is run by a bunch of race hustling charlatans, Marxists. It's a disgusting group of people running a terrible school district in Evanston and Skokie. And they're just exhausted. They had to take this week off.
Oh, yeah, please.
Because they're just exhausted. And Carol Markowitz writes about this in New York Post, too. In Detroit, schools will close for 3 Fridays next month amid COVID concerns.
What?
The Virginia Beach City Public Schools decided to end school 2 hours early on 7 Wednesdays over the next 3 months due to fatigued teachers. More than 20 public school districts across the country will be tacking on mental health days to the Thanksgiving break. So what's going on with the fatigued teachers? And we need to, we need more days off from school.
District 65 is probably one of the most interesting ones in Illinois. It's like you said, Evanston-Skokie. They're the ones that have put white supremacy front and center of their analysis of what's wrong with their district. And they did a study, and like top 3 paragraphs. I can't remember what it was now, but they blame white supremacy and all the results. And so, they're blaming COVID. They have a situation where they have lost control of educating their kids, and now they're just using every kind of social justice thing to get in the way of what they do. It's a damaged district on many fronts, and it gets a lot of attention for those problems.
But it's not over there. I mean, CPS too. The bottom line is they don't have enough subs, and when you have a 2-day work week, people are going to call in. Say like I have a scheduled appointment, I can't make it, and they don't have enough substitute teachers to cover a classroom.
Well, yeah, and that's the big problem, right? Because obviously it happens to be on Thanksgiving week, where now they can take a whole week. And I hate to be so skeptical, and I know many teachers would like to teach, but I'm not surprised that the power of the unions there are going to play games with this, and that's exactly what they're doing.
Carol Markowitz has a different bottom line, which I think she's on the mark. What's really happening is the bar was set in 2020. Schools don't matter, and kids don't matter. That's what's happening. And so what's the big deal? Remember, as she writes, kids are resilient, we're told. They'll be fine. So what if they sat home for a year staring at a screen with no interaction with their peers? And so what if they were forced to do this when all the science said they should be in actual school? They'll bounce right back when the teachers' unions gave the okay for school to resume. It'll just be that easy. It's not just that easy, including for the teachers. And so now they're just falling back on a premise from which they are operating, which is schools don't really matter except as third-party administrators to confer benefits and salaries to the adults. And the kids certainly don't matter. They're resilient. They're resilient. It'll all get worked out somehow, some way.
Well, you're getting back to the power of the unions, and we've talked about this, that there are no stronger teacher unions in the country outside of Illinois. I don't think there's anybody that competes with them, especially the Chicago Teachers Union. And here's the problem, right, is that they've gotten the power to close whenever they want. Now they have whatever they may call some shortage or whatever, they have the power again to close the schools. Instead of trying to figure out how to keep them open, they just close them. And we're going to be coming out with a report soon at Wirepoints, and if you look at the results, it goes back to what you just said, Dan. They don't care. Many of these schools have become, and this is a sad commentary. Some people don't like when I say it, but it's become it's become a jobs program for the adults and a daycare program for the kids. Because if you look at the results that are coming out of the schools, that's exactly what it is. There is no education going on, and when we put out this data soon, it is an indictment of the school system in Illinois, an indictment of the State Board of Education, and the billions that we spend on education for not.
And the point of school systems like District 65, Evans and Skokie, beset by white supremacy in a district that's 90% Democrat socialist. But okay, the problem or the point of that. Look, we don't need 210 days to indoctrinate the kids. I mean, we can do that. Well, we can get that done in a few months, and then we're done. Then we can coast, because that's the point of the schools. Get them, right politically. Turn them into little activists, parroting our lines from our race-hustling, identitarian curriculum with all of our consultants and so on and so forth, and then just coast. That's what the schools are.
Yeah, and Dan, I mean, okay, and there's different angles to look at it. That's one from the politicization of it. The other one is just from the pure ineptitude. I think I talked about this a few weeks ago, but at Decatur, when I went down there and just looked at the black reading results for 2nd through 8th grades, it ranged. So black meet or exceed reading results 2nd grade through 8th grade, and it ranges somewhere from 2% can to something like 8% can. So you're 90% plus can't read at grade level 3rd through 8th grade.
No,
and, I don't know what that is, right? We can call it whatever we want, but it's pure failure, and it means that kids are going to come out of that school unable to perform in civil society.
No problem. We'll give them a check and make sure they vote Democrat, and we'll just move on. Next generation, you're up. That's what we've done for the better part of half a century. Why stop now?
Yeah, I think it's just getting worse, right? I think it's like, once you get down to 2%, what's left?
2%. Dan and Amy, we're joined by Ted Dabrowski, president of Wirepoints.com, all things Illinois policy related. Ted, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's what Chicago is talking about. It's Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy on AM 560. The Answer.
Tasty Catering invites you to come together this holiday season and celebrate with great food.
The delicious holiday menus at tastycatering.com have been adjusted this year to serve you whether you're at home or at the office.
From breakfast boxes to hot holiday meals, the Culinary and Special Events Planning Team is dedicated to giving you a holiday meal you're gonna enjoy.
New this year is the family-style meals for Thanksgiving and Christmas Day. From the traditional whole turkey and all the extras to bold barbecue and all the fixins, it's everything you need to serve a special holiday meal at home.
For a staffed event at the office or drop-off catering at home, the experienced team will be waiting to take you step by step through the ordering process from start to finish. Simply, safely, and stress-free.
Don't delay. Call Tasty Catering at 847-593-2000. View the holiday menu at tastycatering.com.
847-593-2000. tastycatering.com. Tasty Catering Holidays. Gather, eat, and enjoy.
40 days up to 40 pounds. Say it with me. 40 days up to 40 pounds. That's how much you